I recently came across a Pew Research analysis that they found that of all the churches that posted sermons online, they found that only 4% of those sermons mentioned abortion. And of that 4%, only 1% of those sermons mentioned the word in more than one segment. And so what it seems is that this is a topic that the church just isn't talking about in a meaningful way. So why is that the case? I mean, abortion is an important issue. I mean, to be very understated about it. I mean, what's at stake here is, roughly a million or so. It's either that roughly a million innocent children are dying every year through abortion, or women are being unfairly treated and being oppressed in a way that they ought not, and having freedom over their body taken away from them that ought not happen. So it's an important issue one way or the other. Silence doesn't seem to be a reasonable option for this. And when you think of the church, you think that that's a place where one should be able to go to get moral guidance on an issue so as important as abortion. So what's going on here, man? Why do so few churches engage this issue?
Well, if I had to reduce it down, Mike, to two root causes, it would be these. First root cause, a lot of us believe that it's on us to build a church. And we've developed a marketing approach to church growth that basically says, if I entertain people enough, if I have the right messaging, I'll draw a crowd and my church will be successful. And we forget that it's God who builds his church, and he does it through the faithful proclamation of the biblical word of God. We do it through proclaiming biblical truth, not by marketing to the masses. That's the first problem. The second is that we assume that our people can't handle tough truth. And we kind of assume we've got to give them a dumbed down approach, and they won't be able to handle it if we're straightforward with them. And both those assumptions are very damaging, and they compromise the preaching of the word of God in a way that can actually feed the sheep.
So just coming out swinging, man. You telling me that churches are more interested in simply growing some kind of franchised earthly kingdom, and they're afraid to preach the gospel? Is that what you're saying here?
In a way, but some of them are good guys. Some of them are just market driven. I get that. They've become so seeker friendly, they're believer worthless, as Greg Cunningham points out. But I'm talking here also about guys who do want to build the church legitimately. They're not merely personal kingdom builders, but they've bought into this notion that the way you get your church going the right way is to draw seekers, and you don't do anything that will turn seekers away. As if it's up to us to draw people. The Bible gives a different picture. God draws his sheep through the preaching of the word of God. And I think a lot of church leaders also assume that their biblical worldview applies to everything but controversial issues like abortion. And they've bought the lie that this is a political issue and we don't want to get into politics, so we're not going to touch abortion with a 10-foot pole. And that too is a problematic view, because the biblical worldview, Mike, applies to all of life, not just the parts we like. It applies to everything. And to say, oh, the biblical worldview speaks to all of reality except this little thing over here that might become politicized, well, that's an errant view. By the way, all moral issues become politicized. Slavery became politicized. Segregation became politicized. Women voting became politicized. Spousal abuse became politicized. Today, sex trafficking is politicized. But that's no excuse to fail to bring a biblical worldview to those issues.
Yeah. And I think the unintended or the tragic consequence is that the church is viewed as irrelevant, that the gospel is irrelevant, that it doesn't have anything to say about the issues that matter most.
I think you put it real well in a quote of yours that I steal often and most of the time give you credit for, but not always. When you said that when the church does not speak up on abortion, it communicates one of two things. Either abortion is unforgivable or it's permissible, because there's no other options for explaining or interpreting the church silence on this. I know a lot of guys out there are good guys who want to preach, they want to be faithful, and there is a group out there that maybe hasn't said much on abortion. It's not that they're compromised. They don't know what to do. They don't even know what a pro-life church looks like. So I want to be careful that I don't paint too generally here with a broad brush and make it sound like there's nobody out there doing good work. When you were pastoring, you did great work on this issue, and I know other friends that are doing great work on it as well. And each of these guys, though, you and the guys I'm thinking of, had to come to a point where they asked this question: do I trust the Lord to protect his ministry through me when I preach difficult truths? And that's the gut check question for all church leaders. Do we trust the Lord to build his work through us rather than thinking it's our work and we better have the right marketing pitch?